Well, once again, third time very much not the charm for the Kraken. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where once again the Seattle Kraken failed to get their third consecutive win for the first time in franchise history, this time falling 4-2 to the LA Kings. And things definitely didn't get off to a good start for the Kraken even before the game got started, as Jaden Schwartz and Hayden Fleury were both held out of this one with lower body injuries coming out of that last game in Arizona. Hayden Fleury, not a terribly big surprise considering he didn't even play the third period in Arizona, but Schwartz was a little bit more of a surprise. So with both of them out, that means that both Victor Rask, who the Kraken acquired from Minnesota via trade for future consideration, so basically for free, and Derek Pouliot, who the Kraken got off of waivers from Vegas, would play their first game for Seattle in this one. Rask also coming up from the AHL, where he had been sent right after being acquired. And of course, as a result, that means that the continuous mixing and matching all up and down the lineup, both on the forward and defensive end, just continued in this game. Though it's worth mentioning that even with the Kraken lineup over the last couple of weeks having pretty much the only consistent part of it be the fact that it has been inconsistent, they'd still been getting off to strong starts in games, which is pretty impressive considering that lack of consistency and the fact that early on in the season, that was definitely not the case. Whatever the Kraken had been doing to get off to those strong starts, especially in the back-to-back wins coming into this game though, they were not able to continue to start off this one. Either that or they were still in beach mode after 3 days in Southern California between the Arizona game and this one, but either way, they don't get off to a strong start in this game, as it's all Kings early on. Though fortunately for the Kraken, even though the endgame box score might not tell you as much, the one player that did seem to be on his game, especially early in the first period, was Philip Grubauer, who, even though by the end of the first period the stat sheet was only giving the Kings credit for 10 shots on goal, had been facing pressure pretty much entirely throughout this first period. Again, the stats not really telling the story of how the game was flowing, where the Kraken defense was, I guess, doing a decent job of keeping pucks from getting to the net, just not keeping them very far away from it. And any shots that Grubauer did end up facing were pretty high danger ones, as he had to come up with a number of saves to keep this game scoreless through the first half of the first. Meanwhile, going back the other way, while the Kings were getting grade A chance after grade A chance on the Kraken net, Seattle really wasn't able to generate anything high danger off on the Kings net. I mean, honestly, probably the only exception to that was one very good chance that Kuhlman did get from the slot somewhere around the halfway point of the first, though the save was made by Peterson, and then right back the other way, the Kings nearly scored on a good chance of their own that Kuhlman was able to stop with a strong back check. However, shortly after that happens, the Kings do end up finding the back of the net. The 1-0 lead for the Kings comes off of a Mata shot from the point that's deflected in front of the net by Velarde and in past Grubauer, who really didn't have much of a chance at all after the deflection in front of the net, and that does give the Kings that early lead. Or at least first period lead anyway. After going down 1-0, the Kraken do at least get the puck into the offensive zone and spend a little bit of time there in the late stages of the first, but again, just aren't really able to create anything as far as consistent high danger chances and real opportunities at getting one into the back of the net to tie things up. So we do end up getting to the first with the score still 1-0 Kings. The second does get off to a much better start for the Kraken, who are suddenly showing some signs of life that they really hadn't shown almost at all in the first period. But eventually, it's the Kings on a rush chance going the other way. Iafallo has the puck, and Susi pinches in with Alexiak on Iafallo at the last second as they approach the net. And Iafallo finds a wide open Kopitar right next to him coming in, who is able to put it from backhand to forehand and in past Grubauer. Or actually, I think it was forehand to backhand, but either way, he wraps it around Grubauer and into the back of the net to give the Kings the 2-0 lead. And with this goal, I guess if you really wanted to nitpick, you could make the argument that Grubauer overly committed to the first side, which opened up the other side for Kopitar to wrap it around into. But still, I think this is more just a little bit of irresponsible defense from Susi, and moreover, just a good play by Kopitar to get this one in. 2 minutes later, though, after really not much of anything had happened either way, Susi passes the puck up to Sprong, still in the Kraken defensive end, and he carries it out of the Kraken end of the ice through the neutral zone into the offensive end of the ice, and then fires off a shot and scores! It's basically a coast-to-coast play from Sprong, who makes it 2 goals in 2 games in his Kraken career so far. I mean, Susi does get the assist on the goal, but it's one of the easier assists he's ever going to have in his career. Just look at where he passes it up to Sprong, and then from there, it's all Sprong up to the opposite corner of the ice where he eventually shoots it, putting it into the back of the net and getting the Kraken to within 1. Kraken do try to even things up right away, pressing right back into the offensive end of the ice, trying to build off that momentum with a good look for Borgen right into the slot, or I guess off to the side of the slot, but still in a high danger scoring area. Still, a better save is made by Peterson, and then a couple minutes later, after an LA press is thwarted by Seattle, they're right back into the offensive end, and an even better chance on a crossing pass for Eberle on the other side is once again stopped by Peterson, and LA survives that Kraken press, and we stay at 2-1 going through the halfway point of the second. Not long after, though, Seattle's going to get a power play on a tripping call on Kempe, which has to be said was, I think, a bit of a soft call. Either way, it doesn't really end up hurting the Kings that much since Seattle doesn't try all that hard on the power play, really not making almost anything of it until the very end, and at that point, it's pretty much too late. And of course, right after that Seattle power play that was a power play by definition alone is successfully killed off by the Kings. They take the puck right into the offensive end and put it into the back of the net. It's Jordan Spence from the point who gets it through 3 different people screening Grubauer. He never sees it until it's past him. For Jordan Spence, it's his first goal in the NHL, so I guess congratulations to him. Although, once again, we wish it would have happened against anyone other than the Kraken. Still, it's a 3-1 LA lead. And to make matters worse, not long after this, with just over 2 minutes left in the second period, LA gets their first power play of the game, which will pretty much take up the rest of the second. And it has to be said that this penalty kill for the Kraken is certainly more interesting than the power play that they had just minutes before, where midway through this penalty kill, the Kings are holding the offensive zone, looking for that good scoring chance to try to get the puck into the net. And a kind of sloppy change the Kraken are able to get off does mean that McCann comes in from behind the play and nearly springs Kuhlman on a free breakaway shorthanded. He just can't quite cleanly handle the puck, and LA is able to hold the zone, eventually getting a shot off, which is blocked in front by McCann, who breaks his stick on the block shot. And then for the next about minute or so of power play, Seattle's basically playing 3.5v5 with McCann skating around without a stick. Still though, the Kraken penalty kill, with a significant amount of help from Grubauer, is able to keep the puck out of the Kraken net, and then with just seconds left in the power play, harmlessly cleared down to the other end of the ice. Or at least harmlessly for the Kraken anyway, and it doesn't quite make the other end of the ice, instead being interrupted by Adam Larsson just as he steps out of the penalty box, who then gets on a free breakaway at the LA net, gets the shot off right at the buzzer, but the save is made. And we do get to the end of the second, with the score still 3-1 Kings. Once again, just like the second, the Kraken do get off to a pretty decent start in the third, but it doesn't last particularly long as McCann takes that really awkward hit hard into the boards from Byfield, which he's slow to get up from. Fortunately, he does get up from it and would end up playing the rest of the game, so hopefully he's okay going into the future and this isn't anything lingering. But that does draw the ire of his line mates in Geekie and Lind. First Geekie, then Lind. Though it ends up being Geekie who takes the roughing call along with Byfield as they both head to the box, and this game heads to 4-on-4. Not long into 4-on-4, Eberle gets called for a hooking, and it goes to a 4-on-3 power play for the Kings. And with it being a 4-on-3 power play, that does mean there's a lot more ice for the Kings to work with, which allows them to pass the puck around looking for a chance. Eventually, Kempe takes a shot, it deflects off of Kopitar in front of the net, bounces off the end boards and right out to Dursey on the other side, who's able to put it into the empty net before Grubauer can get across to the other side. It's a fortunate couple of bounces for the Kings, and they now lead this game 4-1. And with the Kings now taking a 3-goal lead here early in the third, it also kind of seems to take the wind out of Seattle's sails, as they really just can't get much of anything going until late in the third. The Kings really making it hard for the Kraken to get through the neutral zone, much like they were doing in the first period. And although the Kings don't score again in this game, it is pretty much all Kings until the last few minutes of the third, where Seattle is able to get a couple of chances off. Still though, not able to make a game of this late. And of course, being down 3 goals late in a relatively meaningless game for the Kraken, they don't bother pulling Grubauer. Still though, in the last few seconds, they are able to press finally hard at the LA end of the ice, and as the LA commentators are talking about how many games the Kings have won to this point this season, and JT Brown on the Kraken end of things is talking about how good Peterson has been in net for the Kings this game, Lind gets a puck out to Borgen in the slot, who gets another good chance just like he got in the first, though this time there's no screen, so it's a relatively easy pad save that Peterson is able to make. But the rebound goes right out to Geekie, who chips it over the pad and into the back of the net with just 4 seconds left in the game. It's a pretty anticlimactic goal that Geeky gets to make this 4-2, with the game ending 4 seconds later. But still, it's at least a good way to end this game with the Kraken playing the Kings 2 days later in the same building. And after Geeky scores what is now his 6th goal of the season for the Kraken, with the assists going to Lind and Borgen, he ends up getting tripped by a couple of LA players and falling over backwards. Now, I think it was pretty much on accident, but considering one of them was Byfield, who Geeky already had a bit of a scrap with earlier following that McCann hit, he gets up looking visibly frustrated and almost going after them, but decides not to. Still though, there was some very noticeable chippiness between these two teams late in the game, especially considering that hit to McCann that he was slow to get up from early on in the third, and then later in the third, another awkward hit had Gord going into the boards and being very slow to get up, which definitely made the Kraken also quite upset, considering that was certainly a missed interference call where they should have probably gotten a power play off of it. Not to mention that Gord and McCann are definitely two of the leaders on this team, especially after the guys that left at the trade deadline. So that will certainly be something to watch for going into, again, a second game in a row against the Kings in LA on Monday. Regardless, that chippiness that we saw, especially in the third period of this game, should at least motivate the Kraken to come out with a little bit more energy in the first and hopefully get off to a better start in this second game against the Kings. And if you want a bright side for this game, where, again, Seattle just kind of didn't get off to a good start and then couldn't make it happen in the third, it is the fact that the Habs ended up winning against the Toronto Maple Leafs also last night, which does mean the Kraken now move into an even closer race for that best odds at the first overall pick. Plus, I'll also say that Geeky McCann Lind line, while it does seem like a bit of a weird line to have McCann on, has been the best one for the Kraken in the last couple of games, so it should be fun to watch going forward. Not sure it's one that will necessarily see McCann on to start next season, but still, it gives us something to watch for these next few games. As for the Kraken debuts of both Rask and Pouliot, neither one of them really made a super noticeable difference, at least to me anyway. Rask did create a couple of plays that almost turned into something in the first period, but ended up being shut down by LA's defense. And Pouliot, again, didn't do a whole lot on the defensive end. Really, the one big test that he had was on a 2-on-1 chance where he was the one, with the Kings getting the 2-on-1 rush, and he was able to help shut that down, though it did end up leading to LA keeping it in the offensive zone and scoring off it not long after. Honestly, probably the most noticeable thing that either one of these players provided, in at least this game anyway, was the fact that with his long brown hair coming out of the back of his helmet, Victor Rask did give off some pretty serious Brandon Tanev vibes, which just served to make me sad once again that we haven't been able to watch Tanev now for a few months. I mean, Rask does play a completely different game than Tanev does, who is much faster than Rask, but still, the flashbacks were there. Regardless, I think we'll call it for this one here, so let me know what you thought of this game down in the comment section below. And until the next game against the Kings on Monday, if you made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below that help us support the channel, so I'd appreciate you using them. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken.